Hi everyone. Okay, sorry for the
So I'm late.
slightly there. A kick off please with Aidan from Sky.
Hi Roy, can you hear me okay?
I even just want to say, do you want to close the door there? Sorry. I left the door open. I'm freezing everyone to death in here. So.
No worries. I was seeing Peter Shilton earlier. Roy, he sends his best.
Oh, good, thanks.
Good stuff. Okay, can I start with a bit of injury news, please, if that's okay?
Yeah, no, we don't have any new injury news. I'm afraid the ones that weren't available on Monday night are still not available, but everyone else is fit and ready to go.
How about Wilf? Is he feeling okay? Do you think he might be in contention for this? He needs to pass another or give a negative test, is that right?
Yeah, no, he won't be in contention for this. He's still got to serve out, if you like, the period of isolation. So that would take him, I think, to Saturday when he'll be tested again. And we're hoping that test will be negative because he's been feeling okay, as is often the case when people test positive. But he's obviously had the virus, so we have to follow all the procedures.
Now, when fans and pundits, analysts, etc., talk about your results with and without Wilf, he's obviously a big loss to your side, as he would be for any top player out of any team in the Premier League, really. But do you sometimes think it's lazy analysis? I mean, whatever the problems were against Burnley that caused you to lose the game, it wasn't necessarily keeping possession or creating chances, was it?
No, but he is a very important player. I think that it's always the case whenever you have a player who's hit the headlines for his club in exactly the way that Wilf has done for us, and there's lots of other players you could name in other clubs who would fall into the same category. It's pretty normal when a team plays without that player and you don't get a positive result, that everything features around the man who's missing. But I think I said after the game, of course you miss those sort of players, but you miss them playing their best football. And of course you can't always give a guarantee that a player's going to be able to play his best football in the game anyway. So who knows, maybe Wilf would have played at Burnley and not had a good game. This is what can happen. We tend to always endow the player who's not played with incredible qualities, and the player can't always produce those anyway. But we did miss him, of course, and we will miss him when he's not playing because he's such a good player.
Is it a challenge maybe to the other players when they hear analysis or stats like that to maybe just, I don't know, just push the thing over the line a little bit more to try and get rid of people talking about it maybe?
Well, we have done it. I mean, there was a long spell where we actually didn't, but since that spell was broken, we don't seem to be as aware of it ourselves, certainly. But unfortunately, what is being written and talked about is nothing that we can control. And I'm 100% convinced that the players who get their chances when Wilf doesn't play are really determined to do well. But on Monday night, unfortunately, that wasn't good enough to get us across the line and get the victory we wanted.
Then the government has announced that London's in tier 2 of restrictions. You touched on it after the Burnley game, I know, but how welcome is the news that a small number of fans will be allowed back into the stadium, and will that low number make much of a difference to the atmosphere inside the ground?
It will make a bit more of a difference at Selhurst Park than it will at some other stadia where the capacity is so much higher. But I don't think it's a question really of what differences the fans are going to be able to make. I think it's more a question of how nice it's going to be for those fans who are selected, to be one of those who gets a ticket for the game to be able to see a match live again. So I think that's the great advantage of it, rather than the advantage being that teams are going to be spurred on so much more by such a small number of people. Having said that, I'm talking about Premier League all the time. I mean, I think it's going to be vital importance as you go down the leagues, and that's where the real benefit is going to be felt. And I'm really pleased for those clubs lower down, if you like, who are going to make certain they can help their financial situation by welcoming fans back in. But if you're talking Premier League, I don't think the 2,000 will make a vast difference.
Can I ask what you're expecting from Newcastle, Roy? They've been a bit up and down, inconsistent this season, but they do have undoubted quality in their squad, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. That sums it up perfectly. A lot of teams are up and down because that is the nature of the league, and the quality of the opposition we face every week. But we have a lot of respect for Newcastle United and Steve Bruce and the work he's doing there. And we know that if we're going to be able to get the result we would like, we'll have to be, from the very first minute, at our best.
Can I just invite you to pay tribute to Diego Maradona, who died yesterday at the age of 60? What would be your abiding memories of him?
Well, I think it's his passion, really, and his incredible talent for the game. There's no doubt that everything's been said about him, especially by people who played with him or have known him very, very closely, paint the picture that I think most of us have of him anyway. And I think I've probably got the biggest picture of him and the real respect, if you like, that I hold him in from those documentaries, the film about his time in Mexico and the film about his life. But I remember in Inter, my goalkeeper coach at Inter, Luciano Castellini, he was the Napoli goalkeeper during the time when Diego Maradona played, and he had some fantastic stories about him, and they were also positive. And he really would not hear one negative word about him, either as a person or a player. And as a player, there's no doubt he was so gifted that we won't see his like again. And I can only say it was a privilege to have the chance to watch him play during my lifetime, albeit it was mostly from afar.
Ian Wright, important person at your club, said earlier in the day that the English football public possibly needs to look past what happened in the mid-80s at the Mexico World Cup, because anything else would be to fail to appreciate his brilliance. Would you go along with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's the number of players who, in a football career, have scored an important goal by touching the ball with a part of their body, or by cheating in some other way, maybe diving to win the penalty that wins the game, to suggest that that's all we should remember him for in England. I think that's unbelievably parochial, that really. And we should be bigger than that. And I've got to say that tributes are being paid to this man all around the world. In Argentina, they're having a 3-day state of national mourning. And I don't think there'll be anywhere other than in England that the so-called hand of God incident will be mentioned. And it probably wouldn't have been mentioned as much as it has been in England, had he not chosen to describe it as the hand of God, which was obviously a major mistake at the time to describe it in that way. He should perhaps have said, yes, you know, the ball was there. I couldn't head it, so I put my hand on the ball, and luckily the referee didn't see it. I mean, that's basically what it was, isn't it?
Thanks very much indeed, Roy. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, Aidan.
Thank you. We'll go to Rebecca from PLP.
Hi, Roy. Thanks for your time today. Following on to your tribute to Diego Maradona, what was your earliest memory of him?
Let me think. Well, I always feel when being asked those questions, who am I to be talking about memories of Diego Maradona? I mean, I could talk about probably the 86 World Cup, of course, and watching the game between England and Argentina, and talk about the World Cup before that as well, in 1982, where I have some memories of him as well. The only memory I have of him close up is from Malmo, when Malmo FF, during an international break, were asked to take a team to Granada, a second division team at the time in Spain, to play this match. We weren't given real details about why Malmo FF should be invited to Granada to play a friendly exhibition match. But when we got there, we found out the reason was because Diego Maradona was going to play in the game, because his younger brother Lalo had just joined Granada, so Diego and Hugo came from Napoli during the international break to play in the game. So that was the closest certainly I ever got to him, and I suppose the most personal memory I have of him. But I think tributes to people like Diego Maradona should be paid by people who've played alongside him, played with him, worked with him. As I say, my feelings about him are fashioned by Luciano Castellini, who spoke so unbelievably highly of him, but also watching those documentaries where I think his passion for the game and his passion for life came over to such an extent that one couldn't help but feel enormous respect and admiration for this man who suffered so much for his football. I mean, I don't think there are many football players who would have suffered as much physically for his love of the game as Diego Maradona.
Thank you for that, Roy. And moving on to the next game you've got, and obviously it was a disappointing result on Monday night against Burnley, but you've got quite a short turnaround obviously for Newcastle. Do you think this match comes at a perfect opportunity to bounce back quickly?
Every match after a defeat comes as a great opportunity to bounce back and to try to get back into winning ways. So this match is no exception to that. But unfortunately, you don't get back to winning ways and you don't bounce back from defeats unless you can produce the right level of performance. So that's what we've got to try and concentrate on and work on, because we know that nothing other than that will be good enough to beat Newcastle.
And Crystal Palace have won 2 of their last league meetings against Newcastle. What have you made of Newcastle's campaign so far?
It's been good. I mean, it's the sort of campaign one expects from clubs like Newcastle, who are in the same neck of the woods, if you like, in the league as ourselves. You know, there'll be good moments. There'll be less good moments. If we could be assured, Newcastle and ourselves, of winning virtually every game, you'd be talking about us as one of the top 6 clubs, which I don't believe you're doing at the moment. So one accepts that it's not always going to go your way. One accepts that some days will be better than others, but I'm pretty certain that after 9 games, the 11 points with a fairly tough fixture list, with new players settling into the team that have actually settled in and done extremely well, I would imagine Steve's very content with that. But of course, I don't know because I haven't spoken to him. I'll have to wait until tomorrow night to speak to him.
And obviously, Wilfried Zaha still missing. How excited are you to see the likes of Michy Batshuayi, Jordan Ayew and Christian Benteke fill his goal-scoring boots?
Yes, I'm very hopeful that's what they're going to do. That's what they've been brought into the club to do. That's why we've gone out of our way, in particular with Michy, to bring him in. And I'm hoping that the 3 you mentioned alongside Wilf will give us the attacking threat we're going to need this year if we're going to get enough points to stay up once again and to perhaps even advance up the league table.
That's everything from me. Thank you, Roy.
Pleasure.
Becca, Alex Howe from BBC Sport.
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry about that.
Got places on this army like Dick Turpin, Ben Turbin, sorry, not Dick Turpin.
You kind of touched on it there, but just with Newcastle being the 10th game of the season, just how you'd sum up the opening period for Palace.
It's been okay. There's been some good moments. Obviously, unfortunately, when asked to ever talk about your team's form, the last game is the one that weighs most heavily on your mind, and that was a defeat. But I shouldn't really allow that defeat to affect what I thought of our start to the season, which I think has been quite good. And I've been satisfied in particular with the level of play. And every team in the league, I guess, would like a few more points, especially if you're not right at the very top. But we're still very much on cue at the moment for getting the sort of points total that we will consider satisfactory. But matches like the one tomorrow night are vitally important for both teams, because we regard each other as teams that are in our ballpark and against whom we need to pick up points.
Thank you. That's it from me. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Go to Jim Van Wyk from Press Association.
Hi, Roy. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Hi. Can I just check on Luca? Is he still self-isolating as well? Have you got any more news on him, or still the same?
I've got news on him. He's not. He did his period of isolation.
Okay.
So when he came back from Serbia and tested negative, he was given the go ahead to train. So in fact, he has trained with us this week. Obviously, he's got a little bit still to catch up. on fitness-wise, as is fairly obvious for all those players who have to self-isolate. But he's looking good. He's in good shape. He's certainly fully recovered from the positive COVID test that he had, and I'm seriously expecting him to be fit the next time we play, but not tomorrow night.
Okay, so not available for Friday. No. Okay. How frustrating is it from you obviously have seen, we'll be able to see both sides from an international manager and a club manager, that when you have the players at Palace, you almost protect them in the bubble, and at a crucial time of the season, they've had to go away onto national duty where you have no control over what happens, and then they come back and you obviously have to deal with the fallout of losing one of your key men in Zaha as well.
Yeah, although Wilf didn't go away, so we can't blame international duty for that. We can, in the case of Jordan Ayew, when he went with Ghana previously, we lost him for a game, and we can do it, I think, with Luca, who we're going to lose for more than one game. But it's part and parcel, I suppose, everything that happens in football. We have these big squads to deal with these things, and I really don't think there's any point in lamenting too much the fact that misfortune strikes, either in the shape of COVID and an illness. It could strike in the form of an injury, a muscle injury or a trauma injury. It is really something that we should accept as part and parcel of our game when players are of international standard. When you sign an international player, he's going to be going on international duty, and that in that period of time you have to just keep your fingers crossed that he comes back fit and healthy. But injuries can happen at any time. And the COVID thing with Wilf has obviously happened around the area where we live and work, luckily not within our training environment.
How frustrating is it then at the moment that in the Premier League games, you're not able to use 5 subs?
No, well, that's not frustrating for me at all, because our club didn't vote for 5 subs.
You understand the reason? Are you able to elaborate on any of the reasons behind that? Why you feel strongly that we shouldn't open it up to 5 subs as they do in other competitions?
At the time when we were asked, we didn't think it was an advantage to clubs like ourselves with the type of squads we have, whereas of course it is a massive advantage for the clubs at the top of the league. And because we don't regard ourselves as a club at the top of the league, we voted for something which we thought would be better and more advantageous for us, rather than something to be more advantageous for the top 6.
That's interesting. So you don't think there would be, and give you any other options?
I don't really understand why I'm talking about 5 subs.
Yeah.
I mean, basically speaking, this is voted upon. It's been voted upon twice. 3 subs was decided. It's been like that since the start of the season. And I certainly am not going to be one that's going to try and back up any campaigns you might have to try and get 5 subs back on board again. But if 5 subs comes back on board again, because that's what the Premier League decides, then we'll be fine.
Is there too much made then about trying to manage player workload?
Well, this is a really long interview with me about.
Last question, honestly.
Yeah. We don't have a problem with player work. That is the bottom line. We don't play 3 games a week. We don't play in the Champions League. We don't play in the UEFA League. We play very few 3 games a week. So we don't have that problem, one. And secondly, I'm not 100% convinced that having extra substitutions protects the players in particular in that way anyway. And more often than not, the players that you would perhaps like to protect in your team are the ones who don't want to leave the field. So in actual fact, the arguments are so spurious that I don't really feel that I want to waste my time talking about them. Whatever happens, happens. We dealt with 5 subs. We'll deal with 3 subs. And of course, the club will always vote, if it needs to vote, in a way which protects its own interests rather than protecting the interests of other clubs. And I think we're quite entitled to do that.
Thanks very much, Roy. Best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, that concludes the broadcast section. So if the broadcasters could now leave the meeting, and we'll carry on with the writers.
Roy, it's Aidan again here. Can I just ask you, when with that friendly you talked about with Malmo FF and Granada, when roughly was that? Was that early 80s?
I think it was either 87 or 88. I can't quite remember. It was during an international break. It was warm, so it might have quite easily been the September one. And
Yeah.
when the offer to come there came to us, and it was a good offer for the club because it was not only all expenses paid, but there was some money for the club as well to take part in the game. We were happy to do it, although I did say to the guy who contacted us and asked us if we would go, it's a waste of time because we'll be a B team. Our players also are on international duty. At the time, Malmo had as many as 7 or 8 players in the first and under 21 squads. And the guy said, doesn't matter, just come over. They just want a foreign team. They just want a name, and Malmo FF is a name. So we just want you to come over as a name, and it doesn't matter that you're not at full strength. But it turned out to be actually a very good game. We lost narrowly, and we lost 3-2, I think it was, to a wonderful Maradona free kick in the dying minutes. Probably a free kick we contested as not being a free kick, but that didn't matter. That was what the exhibition match was all about. So it's a nice memory, but basically speaking, like you heard me say, it's not for the likes of me to pay tribute to Maradona, a man I never got to meet, or certainly didn't know, but like all football fans, someone that I've admired and respected for so long. And of course, I'm saddened by his death. There's no doubt about that. 60 years of age is too young to die. And what's more, the problems that he faced in later life, the problems he faced really from playing so much football and playing so much good football, and being kicked so often in the matches he played, had an effect upon his post-football playing life as well.
Thanks again, Roy. Cheers.
Okay.
Okay, so if the writers want to ask a question,